Thanks for staying with us. Recently, as we discussed, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu inaugurated the Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms. What is scrolling down instead of up? Yes, so we have with us the chairman of the Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms, Mr. Taiwo Oyedele. Thank you so much for joining us, sir.
Thank you for having me on your program.
Good to have you, sir. Before doing the paper review, we had touched a bit on the objectives of your committee and what they're supposed to do. Obviously, revenue increment is one of the major issues we need in this country, and how to reform our taxes. Could you again help us highlight what exactly the president has asked you to do and the timelines he has given to you?
Yeah, thank you very much. So the mandate given to the Presidential Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms Committee by Mr. President essentially covers three areas. Number one is fiscal governance. Number two is tax reforms. And number three is growth facilitation. So the first one on fiscal governance has to do with issues around how we manage our debt, our revenue, and our spending. So it would include, some provisions of the Fiscal Responsibility Act about you must not exceed certain limits, your debt to, your budget deficit as a percentage of your GDP should be within certain range. And even how do you ensure that you have coordination between the fiscal policy and monetary policy, which is something that a lot of people have complained about in the past that could be better coordinated. You also have the dimension of the subnational, which is really the vertical coordination. How do you ensure that federal government's policies, state policies, and even local government, in some cases, are aligned, such that Nigerians who are trying to make a legitimate means of living don't find their life more difficult than it needs to be. Then when it comes to tax reform, that's a big one. This is the area where we're going to be looking at addressing the problem of multiple taxation. Mr. President was clear even on day one during his inauguration that we need to address multiple taxation. I'm not sure there's anyone I've met in Nigeria who disagrees. What we really haven't done over the years is take concrete and practical steps in doing that. And that's what we're hoping to be able to do now. Our ambition, which I should say is a plan, not a promise, is to see whether we can get to a single digit in terms of the total number of taxes across all levels of government, so that if you add up taxes collected by federal government, state government, and local government, it should not be more than 9. Currently, officially, is over 60. Unofficially, is over 100. And when it comes to growth facilitation, this is where we're looking at what are those impediments that come in the way of doing business, in the way of prosperity for our people. Some of them will range from dealing with import and export. Some of them is small business just setting up. Sometimes you just set up a small business, it's as if you committed a crime. All manners of agencies will line up collecting all manner of taxes and levies, even before you have made your first sale. So those are the broad areas that the reform will cover. And then the whole idea is we would raise revenue in the process of doing all of this without imposing new taxes on Nigerians and without even increasing the rate of existing taxes, because we think that the money we're looking for is not with the poor people. That's why Mr. President said we are not taxing poverty. It's actually, it doesn't make a lot of sense to tax poor people who have very little or nothing to give. And they've made a lot of sacrifices already. So we think that the money that we're going to make for this country to fund the development will come from the tax gap, which is really people who have the ability to pay now and they are not paying, or they are paying incorrectly. Some of them are actually just feeding it without consequences.
Okay.
So when it comes to taxes, I was hearing two things from you, sir, and even when I read the report, it seemed a bit conflicting. We have multiple taxation, and we want to increase the tax bracket. I feel that there are a lot of Nigerians that are paying something that is not getting to the government. So in order of priority, and a lot of people are worried that it means we'll have to pay more. So I want you to diffuse the tension of Nigerians are paying more to Nigerians that are not paying will start paying. How do we want to capture those that are not paying that will start paying, and those that are paying informally to start paying it formally?
Yeah, so good question. So we're going to have generally Nigerians pay less than they currently are paying now. But you also mentioned this, and you're spot on. So we have so many Nigerians who are paying taxes, and those taxes are not getting to government. So which means the opportunity for you to receive any benefit from the taxes you pay is zero if it's not getting to government. That's because the way we collect those taxes, sometimes we use unprofessional, officers who are not trained. They're very crude in their approach. Most of those taxes are collected in cash, and you can't account for them. Some of them are even collected by non-state actors. So government needs to deal with that. Look, states can deal with it except government. So what then happens is, if someone is running a small business today, and they are paying 15 taxes. When we are done, maybe they will pay only one, right? That one will be less than the 15 they are paying now, but that one they pay gets to government. So the government collects more, even though the people are paying less. And in addition to that, what we also hope to achieve is that in terms of threshold, we're going to collect data from everyone. Whether you're poor or rich, whether you're unemployed, it's important for government to have the data for everyone. In fact, this one that we're thinking about interventions for fuel subsidy removal to cushion the impact. If we had been collecting proper data for taxes in the past, America just credited people's account. They knew who was poor from your tax returns. The way you use your mobile phone, for example, is an indication of whether you're poor or not. If you only recharge with 120 naira in the whole month, flashing people up and down, right? And you don't have a bank account, there's some intelligence that I will get about you, and it will give me an indication of whether you're poor or not. And when we need intervention, we don't need to put cash in Ghana must go and be going to villages. If they don't have a bank account, you credit their mobile phone. Most people have mobile phones, right? And they can use it as food stamp or anything you want them to use that money for. So this is really the dimension that sometimes people don't pay attention to. There's no intention to increase the tax burden on Nigerians. But of course, if you are not a poor Nigerian and you have been evading taxes, then you will feel like it's an additional burden because you are just not paying before. Bear in mind that if you allow people to get away with evasion, it's not good for society, because if you and I are in the same business, and let's say we are selling at the rent, and me, I'm paying my own tax and you're not paying your own tax, what will happen is over time, you have more resources to push me out of that market. So you can even underprice me to get out of the market. You become a monopoly. Then we punish people who are honest, and we incentivize people who are, badly behaved.
So I'm so excited, with just the little example you gave on how to collect data, and because many times when we talk about informal sector, we just say, do we have data? We hear, yes, we have data, but just how it's done, it's just never been so intelligently put out. But so that will lead me to my question about how you mentioned under good facilitations, creating like a sustainable business environment for people. Like, what are the ways we're going to do that? The ease of doing business, how is it going to be made possible? Could you just give us a few tips, a few options that you're going to be using for that?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you look at the various reports we've seen, over and over again, if you do another one today, most likely you can even predict what the report will say in terms of the challenges that businesses face, from small business to large ones. So if you focus on micro, nano, small, and medium scale enterprises, which is going to be more of the area we're going to put more energy and focus will be in that space. It's not like the other big companies are not important, but this is the one that will make the most impact for our people. If you see the challenges they faced in the past, they'll range from access to finance, lack of managerial skills, multiple taxation is always coming up. Over-regulation is another one. So some of those challenges like infrastructure, you cannot solve overnight. But things to do with overregulation, multiple taxation, those are things you can address because they are human-made problems that can be immediately addressed. So what we intend to do, we're going to have very extensive consultation with Nigerians. So we have various groups that we're going to be speaking to. In fact, NASME, which is the Small and Medium Enterprises Association, are represented on this committee. In addition to that, we're going to be engaging from markets, traders to artisans to, SMEs, owners to women in business, various sectors, including Nigerians in the diaspora. We would engage with anyone. We cannot claim to have all the knowledge and know where the shoe pinches if we're not the one wearing it.
Right.
We have some ideas, but we listen to Nigerians, and then we tackle those issues one by one. If we take multiple taxation, we'll say, tell us the taxes you pay, give us the receipt. Don't just say that you pay 15 taxes. Can you give us the receipt? Then we know who is collecting it, where they're collecting it, and we can go to the source of that problem to tackle it. If it's overregulation, who are the people overregulating you? Can we harmonize those regulations so that instead of 15, you have only one? Can we create transparency in how you get permits and licenses, even if they are needed at all in the first place? So if you want to export, what are the challenges getting your goods to the port, getting out of the country, quality-wise, dealing with customs? So it's a lot of work that we want to do. But we're excited because we know that this would open up a lot of opportunities for Nigerians, as well as for business in the medium to long term.
Okay.
Yes, so this is a welcome development, and I really appreciate it. But once the news came out that 18%, Nigerians didn't want to even know the details of that. Once they saw 18% tax, and they were just like, what is this again? Knowing fully well that, one, there's already a removal of subsidy and the naira has been floated. So what are Nigerians to expect in the short term regarding this policy, and subsequently, what are the long-term plans for this to be executed?
Yeah, good question. So Mr. President has given us a mandate to do, this work within a period of 1 year, divided into phases, I'll say milestones. So the first one is within 30 days. Come up with quick wins. We call them quick wins because these are areas where you really don't need to do a lot of consultation. People have agreed already that these are areas for intervention for government. And I'll give you one example. So there's value-added tax on diesel, right? We removed subsidy on petrol, and prices have gone up, prices of goods and services and everything. If you take out or suspend that VAT on diesel, what you will do is you cushion the impact on the cost of, in fact, diesel is used more for production than even petrol. Factory costs will come down. Some of those big buses, like the Molo in Lagos, they're powered by diesel, and they're used mostly by the poorest people. We have issues to do with Nigerians who want to stay in Nigeria and be able to work within the global value chain and earn dollars while being in Nigeria. We have provisions in our laws that don't make that possible. Can we not amend it? Those laws were inherited from our colonial masters. The world has moved on, but the laws are still there. Can we amend those ones? We have provisions today that require that certain taxes and levies be paid in dollars in Nigeria. Why are you paying, taxes in foreign currency? People will then go to the foreign exchange market to go and queue up to buy dollars to pay government. We should promote our own currency, not another country's currency. So those are some of the areas where we want to help take out the pain that Nigerians are going through. Some of them are going to be immediate within about 30 days. Some of them will take a bit longer, 6 months. And then ultimately, we hope that all of these are, great ideas we can implement within a period of 1 year. The 30 days, 6 months, and 1 year are going to run concurrently. So they are starting from day one, which was yesterday.
Right. All right. So you're the chairman of the committee, and it's made up of a dream team. I saw the pictures made up of technocrats. Some politicians were there, and we also observed the young lady from UI. How did they make up that team, and whose idea was it, and how did you bring that team together? And what's the role of that young lady in this team?
Yeah, it's great. So, to address, such an important issue as fiscal governance, revenue transformation, how do you ensure there's growth that is inclusive in the economy, you certainly need a lot of people. Because you don't want to use your own lenses and narrow perspective to then make policies for Nigeria, which is the same thing some of us have complained about in the past. We don't want to be guilty of the same offense. So the idea is to make sure we have broad representation. You see from the list that we've shared, you have professional bodies, you have organized private sector such as Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, we have women in business. Women in business, for example, were very excited. They said, at least for once, somebody remember us. How would anybody forget women when they are trying to fix the economy? We also feel like the young people are also should be involved. That's why we brought in the university task clubs. They're all over universities across Nigeria. Young people who are really very passionate about their country. So bring them on board to share their little ideas. Let them do some research. In the process, they would even appreciate the country more and become your ambassadors in spreading the message about what is possible in our country. We also have a lot of government MDAs, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Justice, you have Ministry of Trade, Industry and Investment, you have the Central Bank, you have NIPC, that's Investment Promotion Commission, you have, Customs Service, of course, the FRS, the Joint Task Board. The whole idea is let everybody that needs to be on the table, let them be on the table without having too large a committee. And the way we want to be effective, because you don't want to put 60 people in one room and trying to agree anything, it may be impossible to do that. We're breaking into subcommittees, about 6 of them. So the size of one committee will be between 10 to 15. Okay. And then the head of those committees will then put together in a steering committee where we make the final decision that we recommend to government, including some of the work we have to do affects subnational. So we'll be speaking to NEC and the Governors Forum. And also we have the local government represented, even on this committee as well.
Yes, so first, gush over the committee. Really excited about this committee, but I have learned not to be so excited about committees in Nigeria because we have had several amazing committees that have put together solutions in several documents that are lying somewhere around the ministries that we haven't implemented. So while Nigerians are hopeful for change in taxes, is there any law backing up your time, this 1 year time you are dedicating to helping to, with the help of 60 other people, reform our tax system? How are we sure that it will not be a waste? How are we sure that what you're putting together will actually be implemented? That's one. Number two, how can you help address some industry-specific challenges? And I'll give an example of my industry, real estate. We have to be a member of Redan. You're paying. You have to join Las Rera because you are in Lagos. You are paying. You are also going to pay the government taxes as well. Then the local government where you are paying. So there are multiple, and I don't know if that is some of the things that you are looking at in your committee, if there's any solution to those kind of industry-specific challenges, because I know it cuts across. Thank you.
Yeah, very good question. So on the first one about, we've had all manners of committees before, and I do agree with you, which is why I was smiling as you were asking the question. And then the reports are always very beautiful, and then we don't implement. This was something Mr. President was very mindful of, and that's why intentionally for this committee, it's not a committee to write a report and submit it after 1 year and then hope and pray that it will be implemented. No, from day one that we start this work, which is, I'll say effectively today, if we come up with an idea tomorrow, I mean literally tomorrow, and we push it to the relevant approving authority, which could be Mr. President, it could be National Economic Council, it could be Federal Revenue Service, whoever it is that by law has the power to approve it, once it's been approved, to implement it, we then go ahead and implement it. For example, if we say that, we don't want to have all these 50-something taxes that are creating problems in Nigeria, once it's approved, we're going to write a bill to repeal all of them, right? And we take it to the National Assembly and we pass it while we're still continuing with our work. So one thing that makes this, committee very exciting for us is that additional authority and I would say also the opportunity to implement alongside our recommendation. And we're hopeful that this will make a big difference, that even after we're done with this important national assignment, we can then copy this. Even other countries, some countries in Africa have reached out to me already, and they say, well, this seems exciting. We're going to be watching what you're doing. So this can become a template for government going forward. So you stop writing reports and you start doing work. Now, to your second question about industry-specific challenges, yeah, I know very well that those challenges are all over the place. Whether it's real estate, whether it's creative industry and entertainment, whether it's professional services, whether it's manufacturing, there's no one sector in Nigeria, even farming, right? So you would have thought that people should just be, nice to farmers. Even farming, they have their own challenges. So what we're going to do is, again, we will not claim to know everything. We will engage with everyone. Very soon you see the list of our stakeholder engagements. Once we engage with them, we understand from their points of view. We'll start with what governments can deal with. Now, if associations decide to impose levies on themselves, there's not a lot government can do about that. We can only just encourage them to consider, because sometimes some of these problems are self-imposed by associations. Some people are already there. They want others from coming. You see all manner of ridiculous levies and charges that they impose on them. For those things, we just appeal to Nigerians to say, at the end of the day, this is about our country, and we have to live for a purpose that is bigger than ourselves or our very, narrowly focused areas of interest.
Right.
Okay, so in the papers I read, when you were talking about the existing laws being outdated, and I was just thinking also of what you've just said about new bills that will be ushered, in the old bills that will be repealed and new ones that would encompass what you're about to do. But I wonder what authority, we know what you do at the federal level, and at the state level, if there's no harmony, how is that going to work out? And the team itself, are we going to have local hubs in the different states that work directly with you at the federal level?
Yeah, so the membership of the committee cuts across all the 6 geopolitical zones, so which means those people who live in those places, we're not going to create offices, because we also don't want to be accused of something we believe is wrong, which is this very high cost of governance and even of administering the revenue system in Nigeria. So we're going to only just have an office in Abuja and one in Lagos. The rest of it will be done when we're having engagement. We'll visit some states, so that will be physical, but we'll not create offices in those different places. So that's to address, the second part of your question about how we, covered the whole of Nigeria.
Okay.
So your question around, yes.
First question.
Oh, he's asking.
Okay, let Toby jump in here. Toby, go
Okay.
ahead.
I like how you beautifully allayed the fears of the common man. And I'm rephrasing your words. What I hear you say is that we're not coming for the common man. But then again, I'm thinking off my head that what plans do we expect to widen the tax net so as to reduce the overdependence of borrowing to fund government expenditure? Because that has been one of the major problems in Nigeria, such that we keep borrowing to fund government expenditure.
So the areas where we're looking to find the money, we think the money is there. We just need to find it and put it in the right places. So there is a tax gap, which means as of today, if you just look at VAT alone, right, or look at personal income tax, you'll find that there are people who buy brand new cars and they don't pay the VAT. There are people who go to very expensive restaurants and they don't pay VAT. I've seen a manifest of importation of armored vehicles. So these are bulletproof, brand new vehicles, and they were declared at very ridiculous amount, I think even like 2 million naira. Wow. So those guys clearly have the ability to pay. They just decide not to pay, and there has been little or no consequences. That's what we want to change for our country. These same people that are doing the wrong thing, they will not go to the UK or the US after they relocated and do that, right? If it's right to do something in a developed country where things work, why do you then do otherwise in your own country, which is really the only place you can call home? And we also have issues to do with incentives. So there are some incentives that were, they were sensible 20 years ago, but we did nothing about them, and today they are not making sense anymore. There's a cost-benefit analysis of if I'm giving away ₦1 as government by way of incentive, the value I'm getting in return must be more than ₦1. Otherwise, there's no point. Some of those incentives are even distortive, such that they don't allow the market, principles to operate effectively, because someone has assets, they can get incentive. Another person does not know anyone, they can't get incentive, and therefore they cannot compete in the same market. The cost of collection is also very high. We collect so little in revenue, but our cost of collection is one of the highest in the world. So can we bring that down? Internationally, the cost of collecting revenue is around 1%. For Nigeria, it ranges between 5 to 10%. That's way too high. And also you can see, by just harmonizing revenue collection functions, instead of having 63 MDAs at the federal government level, you have only one. That in itself saves you a lot of money. So these combined impacts of tax gap, efficiency of collection, harmonizing or rationalizing incentives are the areas we think that the money will come from. That's why Mr. President was confident to say that we're not going to tax poverty, we're not going to introduce new taxes, yet he said that we would collect more, such that in the next 2 to 3 years, we have our GDP, tax to GDP ratio in the region of 18%, which is slightly above the African average as we speak.
And I know I have to wrap up with you because you have to go somewhere, but the truth is that, I'm just worried. My only worry is that I hope other agencies will be able to work with you. You might have conflicting roles with FIRS, for example. Other agencies, I know the president has said everybody must cooperate with the committee. So I'm hoping the Nigerian faction won't play a part where we'll be having issues. But we're wishing you all the best, Mr. Oyedele, with your team. And we hope that because we are friends of you, the House, you'll be coming at least once a month, be giving us reports too on what you're doing. We'd like to hear from you as often as possible to give us an update on how the committees is faring.
Yes, we'll be very happy to give a regular update, because we think that this is national service and Nigerian people are ultimately our employers, and we owe the responsibility to be accountable to them. So we're going to put out our mandate in more detail so that you can actually hold us to account about the promises we make. And the question you asked previously was, how do we ensure that, the sub-national, when you're passing the law and all of that, come on board? Yes, we think that they all mean well for our country. Sometimes it's the approach that is different. And all you need to do is to give people a reason to believe that your approach will work better and let them own it. So we're going to co-create these solutions with all Nigerians, including governors, as well as the man and woman on the street. And when we present to the National Assembly, it will not be our ideas. It will be the ideas of Nigerians that we want, lawmakers, who are equally representing Nigerians. I'm sure that they've already said to us that they're not going to stop us from doing our job. So we have the support from the lawmakers, we have from the executive, we have from sub-national, we have from the organized private sector. Actually, there's nothing we need again that we don't have. And the political will is very, very encouraging now, more than anything we've seen in the recent past in Nigeria. So whatever we cannot do now, we should not blame God about it. We should blame ourselves. But I'm so positive Nigerians are on board. So exciting times ahead.
You've been with PricewaterhouseCoopers for many years. We trust you. We know you know what you're doing, and we're looking forward to the best. Good luck and all the best with you and your team.
Thank you very much.
All right, let's go on a quick break now. When we come back, we continue with the show. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Your View will be right back.